Good morning. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to the Pitch Eye Chronicles at an earlier start. I am Uncle Tats. I'm here with Rob. We appreciate everybody that was able to adjust their schedules and join us for the start of the show, as we just have some work things going on later on, and we wanted to give you our full attention while we could. Donald is either in the air or he's landed, but he's going to be in the States. So we are looking forward. I'm looking forward to getting together with him next week for a Yankee game against Tampa. We'll be at the stadium. Make sure you, once we know exactly which game, whether it's Thursday or Friday, we will let you know. So if you're going to be at that game, we definitely want to get a chance to meet up with some of you that are going to be there. Just let us know on our social media, which games you're going to be at. Also, hit that like button, hit that sub button if you want to join the chat. We're going to start giving them their shout out. And the one guy we definitely do have to shout out on the Yankees is Cody Bellinger, because with the bat and with the glove, I think he was the key reason the Yankees were able to keep themselves in that game and give Ben Rice the chance to get that big home run in the ninth. But Rob, when you look overall, the Yankees they're not a bad team. They have really solid players that it just seems like they're not clicking. There's no. I think that's the thing that's puzzling me the most today, because you saw in the first half of the game, Volpe looked pretty sharp at short, and then he has that error, and everything fell apart for him from there. You could just see his body language. Like he was feeling really confident in the first couple innings. And then you could just everything. It was almost like Two-Face. It's really upsetting because you see the potential in him, but he's he lets the moment get to him, and he never gets, once something goes bad, he just never gets that confidence back within that game. And to me, that's a big problem with Volpe. I know we spent a lot of time on him, but I do want to we really have to talk about how good Cody Bellinger has been for this club.
So you want me to start with Volpe or with Bellinger?
Bellinger. I want to start off. It's an early start for us. It's let's start with a little positive.
Yeah, Cody Bellinger's been fantastic. He's had himself a really good season. The numbers speak for itself. What do you have? 3 hits last night. He had a home run. His defense is fantastic. I really think they have to consider the switch at this point. Dominguez has been one of the worst left fielders in baseball, and Bellinger can play all 3 positions with ease, and he can play first. I think that if this is a way to get Dominguez some confidence back defensively, they can make that switch now, and it would kind of be effortless. I think Dominguez will be fine, but I mean, what's Bellinger have, like an 850 OPS? He's doing great. 18 homers, 57 ribbies, 285. I mean, his numbers have been a hell of a lot better than last year, and we kind of just hoped he would put up a similar stat line to 2023, and he's been pretty much closer to the 2023 guy than he was the 2024 guy. So, I mean, this trade ended up being an absolute steal for us. We gave up Cody Poteet, and we got ourselves an all-star caliber outfielder. I thought he should have made the all-star team. That's how good he's been. And there's some serious conversations to be had about potentially extending him. I think that with the way he's playing, the opt-in doesn't seem too much of a guarantee at this point. If he continues at this pace, he's going to opt out and get a huge contract, and the Yankees might want to get on top of that. It might be a little too soon for those conversations, but you can't deny how good he's been.
No, you really can't. It's if you're able to give him kind of tip your hand a little bit, and give him the, look, we want you back. We want you to opt in. If you're going to opt out, just let us get a fair shot to bring you back. I don't think that's an unfair conversation for the Yankees to have with Cody Bellinger. But the way he's having, he'd be a fool not to try to go into free agency. As much as it would suck to lose him, he's got himself to think about as well. Not us. We're not paying a salary. We're not trying to do what he needs to do. We do what we need to do. But and I don't even, it's he's so important to this club because of the multiple positions he can play. It doesn't matter where he's batting in the lineup. He puts together the at bats that he'll run into one and hit the home run, of course. But he's also not afraid to take take an approach to pass the baton to the guy batting after him. He reads the game very well. He's got a great IQ for the game. And baseball IQ is something that we talk about a lot with players. And when you have it the way Cody Bellinger does, it's a guy that you really need to do everything you can to entice him back. But ultimately, it's going to be his decision because there's a player option, not a team option. If it was a team option, I think it's a no-brainer. But Bellinger, do you think that it would be wise for the Yankees? Because you see the way he plays left field. I think that, he can play left and center equally like a Gold Glove. Do you leave him in left and start rotate? Maybe platooning Grisham and Dominguez in center.
Yeah, that's what I said about 45 seconds ago. Yeah, I think you got to do it because look how good he is in left. Look how bad Dominguez has been in left. We were talking about in the spring, you give it a few weeks before we start making that assumption about Dominguez that he can't do it, but he's gotten progressively worse, which I didn't think was going to be the case. I thought he'd get better. To be fair, he's not playing every day, so it's not like he has every day to get better, but his defense in left field, Dominguez, has been pretty bad. If he was just slightly below average, you can live with it and be like, all right, it's fine. But it's been well below average. He's been one of the worst defensive left fielders in the one of the worst defensive outfielders in the entire sport. So I just think at this point, make the switch, and you probably have a much better outfield. But at the same time, that might lead to Grisham getting more playing time because Bellinger, Grisham, Judge is the best outfield you can possibly have, which would sacrifice some playing time for Dominguez. Unless they find a way to rotate the DH around a little bit, give Stanton some days off, but he's heating up. So you kind of, once again, Aaron Boone, to defend him slightly here, he does have a bit of an issue on his hands because Grisham is hitting again, and you have to play him. Bellinger's hitting and defending as good as you can possibly play. You have to play him. Obviously, Judge is a no-brainer, and Stanton's swinging the bat very well. His exit velo is going up again, so you have to keep playing him while the bat's hot. So you're faced with kind of an issue where you have to sit somebody each day, the same thing we were talking about earlier this year. So I think they make that switch. I think Dominguez will be better in center field. I always thought he was a good center fielder, but I thought he'd be athletic enough to play left. Unfortunately, it hasn't happened yet. I don't know if it will happen. But you see how good Bellinger is. I think it's a seamless transition for him, and I think Dominguez has the speed to handle center field a lot better than he does left. So if I'm Aaron Boone, I'd make that switch. But Aaron Boone is very hard-headed.
Yeah, the other thing with Bellinger, you bring up Boone, and it was the lineup the first two games. Where they opted to sit him in game one because of his numbers against I forget who was pitching that day. And then you look at the numbers yesterday, he should have sat as well. Because they did talk about on the broadcast about his numbers against Scherzer. I think he was 1 for 16 with 12 strikeouts against Scherzer. But they put him in the lineup anyway because they didn't want to sit him 2 games in a row. Well, why didn't you just play him both games, being that he does have the hot bat? And that's one of the big criticisms with Boone is he's got no pulse of the game. You can have all the smarts of baseball in your arsenal, but if you don't know, the one piece you're missing is the pulse of a game, then you shouldn't be a manager because it does go on instinct, and your gut tells you. Always play your player that's hot until he puts himself out of contention to be in a lineup. Just let him ride, just let it go, because also defensively you want to be able to have your better outfield out there, especially on the turf in Toronto. Yeah, this might have been a series where you go with Bellinger, Grisham, and Judge, and kind of make us catch his breath, and try to work on some things. Use him as a pinch hitter, or whatnot. But I think that's where sometimes the logic that he tries to put on us in these postseason games of his reasoning, we go and you look at the way he performed against Scherzer, you're like, you were just bullshitting us in game one. You just didn't want to play him because it was a scheduled off day coming out of the break. Just tell us that. We already know you're doing it. But it's over and over again with the gaslighting from Boone. Just like he's Volpe's still a top shortstop. What game are you watching? It's just Boone constantly putting his foot in his mouth.
The lying is what bothers me.
Yeah.
What did he say about Volpe the other day? It's only been 3 or 4 plays. What, 3 or 4 plays a game, maybe? I don't know what he's watching that he says that. Like, I've tried my best for years now to defend Volpe because I thought there was talent there. And obviously he was a top 5 prospect in the game, so it's hard not to see that there's talent there. But he's a guy that's gotten progressively worse in year 3. Usually by year 3, you see at least some sort of improvement. He hasn't improved at all. His offense has been down. He's been on a month and a half long slump. And defensively, he's gotten incredibly worse. Usually you would hope that was at least somewhat the same. And then okay, he's a good defender with a below average bat. It is what it is, but he's below average at everything at this point. So... And Aaron Boone will have you trying to believe that he is one of the best in the game, and it's like we watch the same game you are. We're not stupid. He's making the bad throw every game, and it leads to a rally for the other team every single game. And thank God for Ben Rice. Thank God for Cody Bellinger, because we would have lost that game too. And it would have been another error by Anthony Volpe. It seems to always be him. And on top of that, he's struggling offensively as well. He had the 2 home run game the other day, but outside of that, what's he, 4 for his last 23? Over his last 30 games, he's hitting 143 with the OPS that's barely over 500. So that's a bad player. I'm sorry. I can't defend that. How can you defend that? It'd be different if he was slightly average offensively and he was just struggling. You're like, okay, it happens in the sport, but he's gotten progressively worse. There seems to be no improvement. And Aaron Boone will sit there and lie to us like he is the best thing since sliced bread. And it's just stop doing that. Because you're not helping anybody by doing that. You're not helping yourself. You're not helping Anthony Volpe by continuing to fluff him. No, you're great. Don't worry about the outside noise. You're great. You're great. Be honest. Just be he has to be better. Just tell it tell it like it is. Those plays can't happen. He has to be better, and we're going to work as hard as we can to make sure it gets better, and that's all you have to do. It's the most generic answer that you can give, and yet Aaron Boone will sit there and be like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. 3 or 4 plays. Those are his words, not mine. He said 3 or 4 plays, and it's just it's been 3 or 4 plays in the last week since we came out of the All-Star break. How can he sit there and lie to us like that? And it's things like that make you so furious because this happens all over the place. I mean, let's not forget Peraza. How bad has he been this year? Offensively and defensively, he's been pitiful. But at least he was a little bit he gave accountability. He's I got to make that play. That's what he said after the game. I got to make that play. I got to be better. And he doesn't play as much. But Volpe plays every single day, and it's just not a single shred of accountability or just not even a blame thing. Just tell it like it is. And that's what makes the fans angry, because he got defensive on the John Boy show the other day. Or was it yesterday when they interviewed him? He was getting all defensive and yelling. Yeah, it was very testy. So it tells you, he's full of shit. And when he starts to bring out his greatest hits, that's when you know he's lost the plot. That's what I tweeted out yesterday, because he said that we're obsessed and hell-bent with winning. He said that last year and the year before. He's bringing out his old quotes again. So you know he's completely lost the plot, and it seems like every single time it's Volpe, he goes through hell and earth to defend him. But if it's another player, it's that can't happen. So I don't know what it is. why it's like Volpe has to be coddled like that, because usually a top prospect in year 3 is supposed to be better, even if it's slight improvement here and there, not progressively worse. And that's what's bothering me, because I still like Anthony Volpe despite everyone hating him, but he's gotten far worse than I ever expected him to get, and it's just impossible to defend the player because the Yankees will try to lie to us and tell us that he is the best shortstop in the league. He tried to compare him to Willie Adames, which is just bullshit.
Yeah, even though they both have the same amount of errors, there is a difference between the two players. Volpe's in a league of his own when it comes to fucking up. Want to bring this up, Raziel? Appreciate you. Remember 8 months membership. Boone gaslighting on his own or following orders. I think it's a bit of both. I think that look. I think the lineups are handed to him. You can't. I really don't believe he's sitting there writing the lineups every day. A computer generates the lineups based on all the analytics, matched up to the opposing pitcher. And then but once the game starts, all those decisions that are made that are wrong, and the press conferences, that's on him. That's him gaslighting us. So, he's following orders of who to play and who to sit. It's everything else after that. It's equal blame. It's the front office, it's the analytical department, and the manager. They're all to blame for this, disaster of a team. We're going to finish above 500, and we'll make it another year that we do that. But big deal. You can't. The thing that pissed me off with this year, we were in a World Series last year, and then this is what they're putting out for production the following year. You talk about a massive step backwards, and Cashman did a great job on the pivot with the Soto deal. Fried. A player. Goldschmidt, A player. Bellinger, A player. Williams, A player. He did everything right to get everything going in the right direction. And there are two things that was severely neglected. You had no third baseman and no competition at short. I'm not even going to say we didn't have a shortstop, because Volpe last year was starting to look a little bit better than his first year. He had a little bit of a sophomore slump there, but I came into the season going, I think this is the year that Volpe's going to figure it all out. And he's got exponentially worse. And that's when you just have to be like, he's not the guy. But there's also nobody breathing down his neck. Hey, if you don't shape up, I'm taking your freaking job. He doesn't have that. He gets to play every day, no repercussions. The manager's just going to keep patting me on the back saying, good job. You're the best. You're the best. No, you're not. You suck. It's that simple. All right. I don't care if his father yells at me. His son fucking sucks. He's not playing the game the right way. He said, you'll have some glimpses where you're like, why can't you do that all the time? And then he just goes and he makes these boneheaded plays. He rushes Stross for no reason. You can even see on the replay sometimes. You see the way he's gripping the ball. It looks like, he's trying to throw it with 3 broken fingers. Loosen up a little bit. Put a little emphasis behind the throw. Instead, he's just lollygagging it. Then that one ball, 62 miles an hour? My granddaughter could throw it faster than that. He's got to start taking it seriously. And Volpe doesn't take it seriously. Because he knows no matter what he does, he's going to be in the lineup at shortstop for the rest of the season.
Yeah, that's really it. Because you're right, there has been no competition for him. I'm not saying they had to go and sign like a Willie Adames to be like, here's your competition. No. But I think at this point, what's the harm in calling up a Jesus Rodriguez, seeing what he can do? Why can't Anthony Volpe sit a game or two. Like, just see what you have, because Anthony Volpe shouldn't have a spot locked in right now. He really shouldn't. It'd be different if he was, like I said, if he was league average at least, and then you'd be like, well, you can't bench him because he's at least doing that right. But he's been terrible on both facets of the game. So, and then also let's not forget about how bad he's been on the base paths. He can't run the bases very well. Outside of that one slide he had to walk off that game, he's been terrible base running. So it's been rough, and that's really the only way you can put it. I can't explain it because I didn't think he'd be this bad. I thought he'd be like you said, I thought he'd be a lot better this year. I thought the playoffs were going to be a good indicator that he was ready to turn it around in year 3. And the way he started, you saw that. He was playing excellent defensively, and his offense was great. He was like a 790 OPS player at one point. Like, he was killing it. He actually has, I think, like one less home run and a few more RBIs than Vladdy Jr., which I thought was insane to me. But that was basically because of the first 2 months. This is what he's done in June and now through July. It's been non-existent. But the fact that he still has almost better stats than a guy like Vladdy tells you how good he was for the first 2 months. So it's like, how does he go from that player to what we're seeing right now in a matter of a calendar month? The calendar switched to June, and he just stopped playing. But when that happens and you get no accountability from the player and the manager and from the higher ups, it's just like, you can expect this to continue. And maybe he does get hot at some point in August, and you're like, see, there's the player that we always thought he was going to be, and that's what's going to happen. I can almost guarantee that at some point in August or maybe even September, he's going to look really good for a couple of weeks. And Aaron Boone's going to say, this is why he's elite. This is why he's this. This is why he's that. But it's like, how could you excuse 3 months of terrible play? So I think this is the time to sit him. Sit him for a couple of games. He's not helping you with the bat. He's not helping you with the glove. You have nothing to lose by playing Peraza at short and Bibas at third. And you go that route. Or you call up Rodriguez and kick Peraza to the curb because he's not helping you either. And you see what you have there. You're losing nothing by benching Anthony Volpe for a couple of games right now.
Yeah, it's. I think that's the other part. I think that's why he might have these issues, and because he's the only one that doesn't get a rest day. Everybody else, it's scheduled. All these maintenance days off, and everything's pre-scheduled. They know who's going to be off next month. They already know what games they're going to sit people. But Volpe, and I think that's where Volpe draws the most ire from the fan base, is because he's been given every opportunity. He's in every game. He has every opportunity to change our minds and be like, look, this is not me. And like I said, and that's why I said, once he has that one mishap, he's done for the rest of the game. If it happens in the first inning, we're fucked. If it happens in the middle of the game, then when we need him to come up with a good at bat, the 8th or 9th inning, we're fucked.
Yeah, you're right. You're exactly right. That's how it's been for him. I can't explain it.
No,
I can't explain it. Gene's saying maybe Hal adopted him. Maybe that's what it is. He's like he's been the adopted child of the Steinbrenner family, because there's really no other explanation. Because why is he
whatever he sees it?
Dude, Judge didn't even get this kind of treatment when he got called, when he was struggling to get playing. Not struggling, but he was fighting for playing time. Like, when he made the team in 2017, he had to like scrap his way to the top of the order. And even Judge, it was because Judge was such an elite player so quickly that they had no choice. But like, I can't think of another prospect that got this kind of treatment by the Yankees. And that's why a lot of people are really down on Anthony Volpe. Not only is he playing terribly, but the Yankees just keep lying to us and telling us that, no, you're wrong, we're right, he's elite. And it's like, stop doing that. You can tell us that it's been disappointing. It's not going to hurt the player's feelings if we say he's not playing as well as we thought he would. Boone did say that, but at the same time, he went immediately to rush and defend him. Like, no, he's still one of the best shortstops. It's like, stop. He did the same thing about IKF. And he told you the very next year, I can't play shortstop. So stop lying to us. I don't know if if he needs to switch positions. I don't think that's going to really help him. But I don't know, man. Like, he won a Gold Glove. He was even better defensively last year. So it's like he can play the position, but this year he's gotten so much worse that you're like, what is it? So is it a mental thing? Are they fluffing him up too much? Like maybe that's just getting to his head. It's like, well, no matter what I do, they're not going to sit me, so I can do whatever the hell I want. It's like the worker that you're never going to get fired because for some reason you're too valuable, even though you don't do anything. So I don't know. It's so puzzling because I fear for the next prospect that gets called up. And are they going to treat, because they don't treat every prospect the same way, because Dominguez doesn't play every day.
Yeah, the one who should be playing more is playing less.
Exactly, and they don't play him at all, so it's puzzling. What's up, Nathan? What's up, everybody in the chat? Because we got a good crew out here. Everyone came in here early with us. So
some early rises. Yeah, we got Doran hanging out with us. We got Stephen B. What's going on, Stephen? Let's get this roll call going. Nathan, good morning. Good morning. Razil, Egyptian magician. Jean-Jacques, what's going on there? Trying to pronounce your name properly. Apologize if I didn't. It's not my fault. John the Beagle Dad, what's going on, John? We had Jonathan earlier on the show. And I want to make sure I'm not missing anybody. Yeah, Chris the Flash was popped his head in. Good to see him.
Saw Ken as well.
And Ken, yep. I scroll all the way back to the top. There's a lot of good comments in here. I do want to, because I know we're on a time constraint, right? So I wanted to, I'm trying to at least put a little bit of trade talk into each show, just to keep the conversations going and kind of get a feel for the temperature of the water. You're looking at Cam's start last night. Is he pitching well enough these first two starts? Is his, poise on the mound and his stuff, is he making a case that he can't be, shouldn't be traded?
God, 2 starts is not enough.
I know you're talking about a small sample size.
It's the smallest sample size. Even 3, 4, 5 starts is too small of a sample size to be like, this kid's untouchable, because he wasn't outstanding yesterday. He was fine. He did his job, but it wasn't like he wasn't like he struck out 10 again or anything like that. I said it the other day, and I'll say it again. I would trade him if we can get. I would include him in a trade for Suarez if we get to keep Jones and Lombard. I don't like it, but I'm so desperate for a third baseman because I'm watching the complete and utter garbage we're trotting out there for the last 2 years that I'm so desperate for a third baseman that's productive, not IKF or K. Brian Hayes, that I would be willing to give up Cam Schlitler. It would hurt. I like the kid.
Yeah.
I've been talking about him for the last 2 years. A lot of people didn't know who he was because he was hurt after they drafted him, and he's risen up so quickly. But the Yankees do a very good job developing arms. Carlos Legrand just cracked the top 100 prospect list. That's how good he's been. So I just think that 2 starts is not enough for me to say this guy's untouchable. And I like him a lot. The arm talent's there. And I know that next year, Doran, I know that next year's pitching class is very good, but the Yankees are also going to have 3 very high-paid pitchers, and one of them's not even going to be in the rotation to start the year. I highly doubt the Yankees are going to sign another $25+ million starter. I just can't see that being the case. I know his stuff is legit, which is why teams are going to want him, and they're not going to get Suarez for nothing. It's not going to happen. You're going to have to give up something of value, and if it's not Jones or Lombard, it's going to have to be Schlitler or more, and more, actually.
Oh, yeah.
So the trade's going to hurt. Suarez is the best guy they can get on the market right now. If they settle for less just to keep Schlitler, and whoever we get, let's say it is K. Brian Hayes, and he's hitting 230 with the 500 OPS, by the time we get to October, people are going to say they should have traded for Suarez. So it's just, if you get to keep Jones, I would trade Schlitler.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat with you. I'm more reluctant to trade pitching at any point. Whether I think the pitching trades, those should be more of a focus in an off season, not a trade deadline. I've always felt that way. That's what bothered me about the Montgomery trade. You'd never subtract from such an area that you rely on. I mean, I would, if it was me, I would try to hold on to. I think Schlitler is going to be. I can see him, with Schmidt at the bottom of this rotation next year, and subtract Warren. Warren is the guy I would move. He's got more under his belt. But I don't like with Warren when he shows when he's rattled too easily. It's too obvious when you could tell that he's starting to question himself. With Cam, he's almost like a machine up there. You never know if he's upset with a pitch or excited about a pitch. And I think that is very important to a pitcher, especially in this market. That it's just not going to phase you. The crowd noise is not going to phase you. And I think especially what he was able to do, even with the 2-1 runs yesterday, that's not an easy lineup. He could have easily gotten lit up yesterday, and we would have just chalked it up as, look, it's only a second start. So if we would have had that reaction, I think it's only fair to have the reaction of, look, we got to hold on to this guy, however we can, if we can. But it's going to be, especially because Suarez is such a highly touted piece for the trade deadline. We're going to have, it's got to be, you got to really strengthen the offer. And I think Cam is going to be that guy. I think it's going to be almost like Poteet last year, where we were really high on Poteet. And when they moved him, it sucked. But it paid off because we ended up with Bellinger.
I don't think Poteet and Schlitler are in the same category because Poteet was 30.
No, I'm not putting them in the same category. Just guys that you saw that there's a lot of high upside. Because we talked about holding on to him and moving on from some other guys. So I think that's where I'm going with that.
Look, Schlittler's got arm talent. There's no questioning that.
Oh yeah.
But 2 starts and people are already saying he's a young Garrett Cole and he's our version of Paul Skeens and he's untouchable now. And it's like you're setting yourself up for disappointment because if he has a couple of rough starts, which he will because that's how baseball works.
That's baseball, Susan.
Remember how good Will Warren looked for like 4 or 5 starts, and then he had a couple of clunkers, and people are like, they should have traded him, and now I'd rather trade him. So this is how it works with pitchers. Even Rodon was bad for a few starts earlier in the year. Luis Heel had some clunkers last year, but he figured it out. It's going to happen. He's going to have some clunkers, and I almost can see it now when he does, because he will. That's how it works. People are going to say they should have traded him. And then he'll have some good starts. So it's a good thing we held on to him. And that's how baseball is. That's how fans are. It's just the way the world.
We've done it ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. So we're not innocent in this. And it's just, I think if you're going to make an improvement, if you want to keep Schlitler and keep some of your highly touted prospects, then you're going to be settling for IKF. And maybe they get Mitch Keller. But if you're getting Mitch Keller, you're going to have to give up Schlitler as well. Teams are going to look at him and be like, hey, this kid's throwing 99 easily. He's striking out a few guys here and there. He looks pretty good. It's only 2 starts, but he's been a quick riser. If we're going to give you a starting pitcher that's under team control, like a Mitch Keller, we're going to want a starting pitcher back. Even if they trade it with the Twins, they're going to want Schlitler. If they trade it with the Royals for Estevez or Seth Lugo, they're going to want Schlitler. Like, this is how teams are going to want him. It's like, if you're not going to trade Spencer Jones, they know they're not going to trade Lombard. Well, Schlittler's probably the next best thing.
Who's the next shiny object? Yeah.
Right. So it's not like it's not like Brian Cashman go, no. You can't have any of those 3. Take our top 2 of our top 30. Like, here's 29 and 30 out of our top 30 list. And we give us Eugenio Suarez, who's having himself a 40 home run season. Plus, he might crack 45, 50 the way he's hitting it. You're not going to get that for nothing, even if he's a rental. Whatever trade they make for a good player is going to hurt. So if they want to try to get 2-3 players in a deal, you think you're not giving up Cam Schlitler in that? I'm sorry, that's not how it's going to work. They're going to have to pay something. And we say this all the time. To get something, you have to give up something.
Yeah, it's And good morning, TC. I see TC jumped into the chat. Ivan, saw you jump in as well. Good morning to you guys. Um, looking at where was it from Genie? Cashman should step down. He can't construct a team. He can. Is it the right team? Not every move is gonna. You can't win every move. No GM has a perfect record. You know, just Cashman sometimes. I think sometimes his ego does get in the way because of the organization that employs him. Absolutely, because there is the business side of it. But to say that it's always Cashman, I think that's also a little unfair. Because he has made moves where look at what he did this offseason. Right? They made this, with Bellinger, Goldschmidt, Williams. He's not been lights out, but he hasn't been a complete bust. He had a bad stretch and he corrected himself. So does that mean do those moves make Cashman a bad GM? He can't construct a team. So I think that it's to say that he's just terrible at his job. I think that's unfair. Does he make some stupid moves here and there? Absolutely.
No, he had a great offseason. There was one move that he didn't do, which is to get a third baseman and maybe add one. Yeah, there you go. Maybe add one more relief pitcher. But outside of that, like Max Fried has been one of the best pitchers in baseball. Bellinger has been better than anyone could have imagined. So that was a steal. Devin Williams, after the rough month, he's turned it around. He's been fine. He hasn't been great, but I miss Caleb Durbin at this point. We could use him. Look how good he's been at third base, but they needed a strikeout guy like Devin Williams because we didn't have a closer. It's like, how can you really say the offseason was bad? He just didn't get a third baseman. And Goldschmidt's been has been outstanding considering what he was last year. So every move he made has paid off, even bringing back Tim Hill. The one move that they made that you probably could argue, or you definitely can argue, was unnecessary was Loizaga because he's just been terrible. But that's really it. If they had brought in one more guy like a Danny Colombe, then the bullpen I think would be a lot better. He's been so freaking good for the Twins, and I was saying go get him because he was available for the entire offseason. You could have had him for nothing. And yeah, they missed their opportunity to get maybe one or two more bullpen arms that were sitting there. David Robertson was sitting there all year. So they could have.
He's now with Philly.
Yeah, they could have done a couple of more things for sure. But all in all, the way their team was constructed for the first 2 months, Brian Cashman looked like a genius because everyone was playing proper positions. They were hitting, they were fielding, they were running the bases, they were playing fundamentally good baseball, and they were like a top 3 team in the league. And we built an 8-game lead. And then June came around. So I'm not going to put this on Brian Cashman, but he could have done a lot more. He could have done a few more things for sure.
Yeah, there's always one more move he could have made. There's always going to be a move we say he shouldn't have made. Ask any baseball fan of any team, they're going to tell you the same thing. We should have, we should have waited for this guy, or we should have been more aggressive for that guy. It's that's just being a fan. You never, unless you're. I'm sure that they're a Dodgers fan after the World Series was still making, a couple of complaints about maybe, one or two key plays or a player that they really wanted to see step up and had a subpar, postseason. We live to complain. That's just being a fan. The only one I really have I tried. I almost have to force myself to give credit to sometimes. Is Boone because he's the one. He's navigating everything within the game. But yeah, you brought up Loizaga, Rob, and that's another one. What the hell happened to him? I mean, is this I think the injuries just kept him out so long. I don't know if he'll ever regain himself again. I don't think he'll be the guy that we were waiting for.
He looked like that guy for a little bit this year. When he first came back, he was on and off, but he was at one point he had like an ERA in the low twos, and you're like, hey, there he is. There's the guy. If he stays healthy, there he is. And then I think much like most of this bullpen, June was just bad for him. He had that terrible game against Cincinnati, I think, and ever since then he's just been kind of on a downward trend. He's given up 3 runs in multiple games now in the last month, literally the last month. So that's rough. That's going to bloat your ERA, but it's like every time he goes out there, he's missing wildly. He's not getting swings and misses. I know he's not really considered a strikeout pitcher, but he's a power pitcher, and that should help. Also doesn't help the defense behind him has been fucking terrible, but he's not pitching well enough. So he does have an option for next year. They ain't going to pick it up. And at this point, he might be an expendable piece. If they're going to acquire 2 arms, which they probably need to, because I don't know how much they can rely on Leiter because they pretty much pitched him while he was hurt. You might have to consider kicking him to the curb, which sucks because I like him, but it's just he can't stay healthy. And now that he is healthy, he's been bad.
A couple years ago before his one injury, he's had a couple. I can't even keep track of them. I was making the case for him to be the closer. When we moved on from Chapman. So it's not like I never liked the guy. I really thought he was going to be one of the premier bullpen arms in the game. He has the velocity. He has the stuff. This year, now that he's back and he's his command is just so off. I mean, the velocity's still there, which kind of gives you a little bit of hope, but maybe a fresh environment. It's a new coaching staff, because I don't think it's Matt Blake's fault either. So it's just one of those things where I think Loizaga is also going to be that odd man out type of thing. But,
and Doran does bring up a good point. There's some guys coming back. But again, are they the most reliable arms? Like Cruz has been good at times, but he's been hurt twice this year, and he's been injury prone throughout his career. De Los Santos looked fine, but I wouldn't say he's a guy that you're like, "Whoa, I can't wait to get him back." And Yarbrough was phenomenal. I miss him a lot. I really do miss
definitely
him.
Missed.
Yeah. But again, I think his value at this point is as a starter. So, maybe they look at him kind of like the way they're going to look at Luis Gil. Well, we got 2 starting pitchers coming back, so we didn't feel the need to go trade for one, which, okay, that's fine, I guess, but you better go, if you're not going to get a starter, you better load up on the bullpen. Exactly. So if you have to, maybe you call up before we end it here, because we do have to end it a little bit early. Maybe they call up Kansas City and see what it's going to take to get Lugo, not Lugo, because he's a starter, but Estevez. And maybe they look to trade Garcia while his value's up. Michael Garcia is having a really good year. And they're both under control for an extra season, at least. Garcia's got like 3 years, and Lugo's got another year. Estevez. So maybe you go that route to get a couple of guys that you have under control and you won't have to worry about next year. Maybe they do that. But that's going to take, for sure, Cam Schlitler plus. So any trade they make that's going to get them a good player is going to hurt. If you're going to say, well, just get anything, then you're going to settle for like bargain bin.
Settle for less.
Right. Now, let's not do bargain binning, because we did that last year after the Jazz trade and it didn't work. Enyel De Los Santos, who we lit up the other night, and Mark Leiter, who
just not consistent enough to rely on.
Exactly. So if we're going to make a good trade, which I think they will, because if they win tonight, which I don't know if I hope they do, but if they win tonight, we were saying this at the end of the show, this series is going to really determine their deadline plans.
Yeah.
These next 2 series, but this one for sure. If they win tonight and go back to a 2-game deficit, they need to make that big push.
Yeah, they need to win the series against a division rival. That's been their biggest hiccup this year with the schedule, is they can't beat the teams they're supposed to. But with that, we'll find out tonight. And we'll discuss it all on Friday. Again, we apologize for the short show, but we just do have a lot going on. So we do appreciate everybody that did spend this amount of time with us. You guys, it does not go unnoticed, your appreciation and our appreciation for you guys. So with that, make sure you hit that like button, hit that sub button, share this out, your friends, your family, strangers on the corner. And remember to always wear those pinstripes of pride and play hard.